As I mentioned last time, our next meeting was actually at one of the JW ladies' homes. Because of this, we decided not to record this meeting. But as soon as we pulled out of the driveway, we started recording our thoughts as a bit of a debriefing while it was still fresh in our heads. So today you'll get to hear how it went and what our impressions were at the time. We didn't get far into the chapter for this meeting as usual. A while back, someone commented under one of my videos that my friend and I are the dynamic duo. We found that so fun that we decided it could make a great little theme intro for this video. Enjoy!
That went?
I think it went similar to previous meetings. We didn't go very far. This one definitely was, we were basically just doing one page, and I don't think we even fully got through that one page.
No. So we found that reference that I talked about was Isaiah 44:24.
Yes.
Now, and in reference to John 1:3, how did you think that they kind of comprehended what that? It didn't seem like it sunk in.
They didn't say anything, but that doesn't mean it didn't occur to them in the back of their minds. It could be something that you planted there for them to think more about.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like it came across, and then they kind of didn't. It didn't quite. Didn't get the reply or the.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actual
defense. Yeah. And I think that's good actually, because you left it free for them to just think about instead of demanding an answer. Sometimes it's best just to let them think about it and take it home with them, and maybe one night when they're awake or something like that, it starts rolling around in their minds, that kind of thing. So I think that's okay. And we might be able to bring it up again in the future, especially when we get into further chapters, because she keeps the one lady keeps bringing up that they don't believe that Jesus is not God, that kind of thing, and they bring up the Trinity, and we try to avoid that right now because we're not there yet. We'll be there soon, but
too, because they talked again about the firstborn, which I was going to talk about it again, how that definition is not correct with how they interpret it, but they again tried to use that to validate that Christ hasn't always been.
That he's firstborn, but not the firstborn.
So I didn't think to remind about bringing the understanding and definition of what that actual word means. That means like first in rank, like
preeminent.
Right, preeminent, opposed to literally first creation. But anyways, maybe next time.
Yeah, and that's a good one. I can't remember. I think on the phone we might have been through that once when I said, was he literally the firstborn? And then, because that always, they want to take it literally, but not really.
Yeah. So, but what do you think about them about Jehovah's name, and how I talked about how, for me, it's not the single name of just kind of having it separated from who you're worshiping and all the attributes of who he is. Like, they want to make it like you just literally have to say the name, and that's literally it.
Yeah, and I think you did an awesome job there telling them, bringing it back around to his attributes and who he is, and so it's not just these letters or this word, it's actually who he is that we're focusing on. So yes, the name Jehovah is good and fine, and we can use it, or Yahweh, and that's good, but it's about who he is. So
because again, you could have the quote unquote wrong like you say Jesus. A lot of people understand, oh yeah, I love Jesus too, but little do we realize that it's not the biblical Jesus.
Right.
So
it's not the true Jesus.
You could say Jehovah, but again, who is this Jehovah you're talking about?
Yeah.
Because again, their Watchtower Bible is not the true word of God. It's
distorted.
But anyways, I wasn't sure if that kind of really hit home with them in regards to the questions they had about his name.
Yeah.
And how important is his name, and
Yeah, it's so shallow the way that they present it in the material, right? It's just all about like we watched that video I thought was never going to end.
Oh, the 8-minute video.
Yeah, about the woman from Cambodia, and then finally she learned his name, and all her emotion about that and everything. And it's also, there's music in the background and everything,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be this exciting thing that she finally learned his name, and now she could really know him. And then that weird scene where she went to what looked like probably a Catholic church.
Yeah.
And then she put up her hand in the middle of the sermon, which already like, what? I don't think even JWs do that in the middle of a talk, right? Like they wouldn't be allowed to do that.
Because he was just saying, my father, and then he kicks her out.
Yeah, and then he kicks her out. That's crazy. I mean, worst case, I would think in a church service or maybe even in a Kingdom Hall that you would, if someone was brand new and had never been there before and had a question and put their hand up, it wouldn't be get out. It would be more like, oh, okay, yeah, we can talk about that right after the service. Come see me,
But again, they did the same thing like they did in previous videos. How I didn't understand. So when she was approached with obviously a Bible verse or some preaching or something, I just didn't understand. It just was hard to understand. But I heard the name Jehovah, and all of a sudden that's the gateway to.
Yeah, now I know all about him, and yeah, now I'm finally happy. And yeah, there was a lot of that. I don't know, like I really like how you kept bringing that back around to talking about who Jehovah is, because it kind of it got them feeling like they had to talk about it a bit differently than they wanted to. Like they couldn't just do the standard sales pitch. They had to really look at who he is and his attributes. And I know they like to say that he's a real person, and I could get into a whole different, well, he's three persons, so that's why I was trying to use the word being, and they're like, oh yeah, but they didn't really focus on that word too much. So
and so explain to me what because you're talking about the false understanding, or talking about the Trinity, because they didn't want to touch on that topic. So what,
that was interesting.
So kind of re-talk about like what you were mentioning.
She was sort of trying to say, if I remember correctly, something about, like she was trying to say how she denies Jesus as God, right? So she was talking about how some people say, Jesus is Jehovah, and something along the lines of like Jesus is the Father or something. I can't remember exactly. So I tried to point out, well, like that's not the Trinity, right? Like that's not the actual teaching of the Trinity. And then she got into the usual thing that they all do, from what I've heard, where she'll say, oh, well, different people have different beliefs, different, ideas about the Trinity and stuff like that. So I was, trying to point out, well, the Trinity actually is a specific doctrine. It's not whatever you feel like, there's, and so that's why I described modalism to her, to show like that is not the Trinity. Some people might say it's the Trinity, but they're wrong. Like that's really clear. And then I went into further describing a Mormon belief, and then saying like, if I told you that's what you believe, whatever, and you would say, no, that's a different religion. That's not even what I believe. So, and if you want to know what I believe, I should have said that further. If you want to know what I believe, you can look it up on our website.
Yeah, and that was good too when you had mentioned about how that that God is obviously the only true God, that all the other gods are false. So that it kind of prepares them then to not be able to say how they would believe that Jesus is a God. So then when that time comes, you can remind them about how you had only said there's only one true God and all the other gods are false. I'm guessing that's why you emphasize that.
Yes, that's just laying some groundwork for the future. Absolutely, because it's going to come up at some. You could tell they even wanted to when they brought up John 1:1 and they went to in the beginning, which I'm really glad I got to give them the whole. In the beginning doesn't mean a starting point in time. It means as far back as you can go.
And they seem to be okay with that.
Yeah, they did. I know. So that'll be interesting to get to bring that up again too. I think because it contradicts what they believe about Jesus. They were actually suggesting that Jesus always was, or was from long before, forever before creation and stuff like that. So I don't know if they were just trying to be like as light and friendly about it as possible, or if
maybe God just said, no, we're just going to stop their mouth and let them sit with that.
And that's certainly what we're praying for. That would be awesome. So we only got through the last part of chapter 4, so we're not going quickly at all. We rewatched the video, Does God Have a Name? And I had written something there, but I didn't mention it. I guess in the video it mentions John 17:26, or maybe I just wrote it down because I thought of it. I can't remember, but yeah, and it was just, who was Jesus speaking to in his ministry? Did they not already know the name Jehovah, or was it maybe Jehovah's nature and attributes, just like you were talking about, that's what he means by making his name known, is that it's about him, because the Jews would have known Jehovah's name. Like, they knew Jehovah, they used it, they were familiar with it, so he didn't have to go and tell them the name Jehovah. Right? They already knew it.
And then too, you had mentioned, okay, so then where did Jehovah's name go? Like, for all the time, like, you mean like God's sovereign, like he wasn't able to actually have any control over his word, that Satan is the one that had basically the sovereignty to do as he pleases, to take God's name out.
And both of them gave answers of how it happened, not how Jehovah allowed it to happen. Like, they were deflecting basically to their usual training about all these things, and they were trying to get into, they wanted to mention Nicaea. I think they were basically sort of trying to point towards that, and superstition, and all that kind of stuff. So, but the whole idea. So that's what I was kind of trying to gently get at, the idea that Jehovah and Satan are like equal powers or something. I'm sure they wouldn't word it exactly like that, but they seem to almost present it like that Satan has the power to thwart Jehovah in certain ways.
Well, yeah, because that other encounter we had with JWs is that they said that God had given over his sovereignty to Satan. So Satan is actually right now sovereign and God is not. So I'm not sure if they would say that and agree to that, because, they all say something sometimes a little bit different. So, but again, do they even understand what the word sovereignty means?
Exactly. And I don't think they really do, because from the other lady that I've talked to on the phone so many times, she would say things like that he doesn't know everything. He just looks and he sees certain things he chooses to see or not see, and that he's not omnipresent, he's not everywhere all the time, and so you get this God of theirs that's smaller and smaller and smaller the more you learn about him, right? So,
and that's again where it's not as important, in the sense of just knowing his name. Who are you talking about? Tell me who this person is, because then you can begin to see whether or not they're speaking the truth.
I remember I wrote down a couple of notes here. I had to make more notes because we weren't recording. So, one of them was mentioned, how we have the opportunity. A lot of stuff about how all of, that Israel was cut off, and then everyone else now gets an opportunity that they didn't have before, I guess. And it's very wooden, and it's very, like, I don't know. Like, we don't believe that Israel was cut off. Yes, the Jewish system certainly was ended with the destruction of the temple, but because Christ had come, he was the fulfillment of all that. And but Israel as a nation was not cut off.
Well, no, because he said there is no Jew or Gentile, meaning like it's open to whomever. Like, there's no cutting off them.
It's all people from nations, people from every single nation, tribe, tongue, people, and nation. So that was interesting. That I didn't jump into that because there's so many rabbit trails that we could go down here. So I just kind of let that one go and made a note about it. Then I got into James 4:8a. They didn't want to even finish the verse.
Man,
so
it was good that you had them read all the way from
verse 7.
Because that made a big difference.
Yeah, I thought so. It gave the full context, because they want to take. No, there's nothing, like, they're not wrong in what they're saying there, but the verse is not used in its own context, where it's really about turning from your sin and drawing near to God, whereas they're trying to make it this like fluffy, feel good, God will draw near to you kind of thing. And they're missing the broader context that you have to repent and believe, not just.
Well, yeah, and then of course, they added the point is you do that part, because then you have to do your part in order for God to come to you.
Right.
So they use that part to indoctrinate the whole fact is you have to do your part, otherwise God can't do his part, like he's helpless.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where it's not what the word is saying here. It was in It was in the James, right? That was the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, I think it was maybe it was in Romans.
James 4:7-8.
Okay. I'm obviously thinking of something
But
else.
yeah, there was. I know you're right though. There was Romans was another one that was. I said 8-13.
Yeah, we had a number of verses in that we shared.
Yeah.
Besides the one they wanted. Oops. And again, just them reiterating their works righteousness that they have to earn their salvation.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, so it was Romans 10:9 so basically, if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart a person believes, resulting in righteousness, and with the mouth he confesses, resulting in salvation. For the scripture says, whoever believes in him will not be disappointed. I'm reading from the NASB, that one. But what drawing near to you. Yeah, for there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord is Lord of all, abounding in riches for all who call on him. For whoever will call on the name of the Lord will be saved. So anyways, I was just remembering them just saying that you need to do your part so that God can step in and then do his part.
Yeah.
And you were reiterating like a father or a mother for a child, that they are the one that draws the child to themselves.
Yes, they kind of skipped that part.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and with Romans too, because they know, she was quick to point out several times that it was quoting Joel, but in missing the context that it's Lord there is Jesus, that's what the context of that chapter is, right?
Yeah.
So they tried to sidestep that as much as they could.
Yeah.
So the other note I have is that the one woman used to go to a Roman Catholic church when she was a kid, I guess, and so she was saying how amazing it was for her when she first heard the name Jehovah, because she'd never heard it before. So I kind of asked her a bit about that. So in the Roman Catholic Church, you never heard the name Jehovah? No, never. That really surprised me and makes me wonder. So I have some Roman Catholic friends. I think I'll maybe ask them when I get a chance and see if they're familiar.
They like to
with
put all this, insert all their views on how different groups and things happen. Like, you can never understand anything anybody ever tells you about the Bible, only if a JW is telling you.
Yes.
And I mean, every video, I think if it's put in there, it's always saying that it's so confusing. The King James Bible is so confusing until I heard this translation.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely elevating it simply by that.
Yeah, and also until I heard this Jehovah's Witness tell me all this stuff, and now I understand. And it's like they're the only ones that can. It's like everyone's a child. Everyone's a child to them, and then they can tell this child all the things and teach them properly, and that's the only way they're ever going to really know Jehovah. And they're the true religion and all this kind of thing. And it's like they're just basically, kind of gaslighting. They're telling you you're too dumb to know any better, so we'll tell you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you can think of?
Not too much. Like you say, it didn't quite get into any really meat chewing
No.
things like that. But I guess the next chapters on the Bible is God's message to us. So hopefully there's some. I know that they had talked about Tyndale, but I thought we're going to wait for that one.
Yeah, we'll wait for that one. Yeah, because if we can get through chapter 5, then there's a Tyndale video. So we have some good questions for them.
But for me, the biggest thing is that the fact that you can say the name, but the name really has no weightiness unless you know the fullness of who that person is. So I just think they get so, like, it's almost like they make an idol of a name, in the sense that it detaches from who that person is, that if you call them by any other attribute or acknowledgement, that somehow it's like, I don't know,
like it's not real or true. I know, and I've tried to push them a little bit on that here and there, like sort of, if you do just say Father, or if you just say God, does that mean for sure you wouldn't know which God you're even talking about? Like when I mentioned the God of Abraham, Isaac, and
Yes.
Jacob, would that be the same God as Jehovah, even if you don't say Jehovah? You know,
Yes.
is that confusing to you? Like,
Yes.
that's what they seem to be implying all the time.
Yeah.
It's but I mean, that's just where we are in this book right now, so hopefully that will not be like
Yes.
the only thing they want to drive home for the whole rest of the conversation.
For sure. For sure.
And I think we were pretty good about saying, yeah, I agree with this and I agree with that, because we want to test them and question them on things, but we also want them to feel comfortable still. So
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And you're definitely one to make them feel a little more uncomfortable.
I'm good at that.
And that's okay. Because I think if you had two of me, I think they wouldn't be challenged as much. But yeah, and then I don't know, this video they recommended at the end, I'm not sure how many names does God. That just goes back to what was she kind of insinuating with this video that she wanted us to watch?
Yeah, just they really like to have the differences between name and title explored.
Yeah.
And so they actually, even where there are times in the Bible where it says, God's name, and it says the name of, it calls him the name, and it's not specifically Jehovah, they'll say, oh no, that's still a title. That's kind of what they're implying anyway. So that's what they want to do, is they want to split that up in our minds and make us believe that every other name of Jehovah is really just a title. It's only Jehovah that is his name.
Like, again, separating him from his attributes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's one of those, it's a legalism that they're really, really tied up in. And I think it only came around from Rutherford. He's the one that actually called them Jehovah's Witnesses, I think. They weren't even, they were just the Bible students before that.
And do you think to some regard that maybe because they give themselves that title, they themselves feel like a sense of superiority because they can attribute Jehovah's name to themselves, to almost like a kind of an idolatry kind of level of pride?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly what I think it was developed for, is that we're the only ones who use the name Jehovah. We're Jehovah's Witnesses,
Yes.
You couldn't just say we're witnesses for Jesus. That's so like too generic, and that's so not important. No, we're set apart by this name. That's their thing. So yeah.
Right.
Which is why they'll never be called Yahweh's Witnesses, because they've already kind of settled in on that was their logo, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, it was awesome to witness again as sisters in Christ, and
like you say, we got to go in their home.
We got to go in a JW's home instead of them coming over. Yeah, so we went, and it was really nice actually, just to get to go into her home and see where she lives, and it was a very friendly conversation and nice time. So
yes, and continuing to pray for their hearts to be softened, and that the word of God will not return void.
Yes. Yeah, amen.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get not impatient.
Yeah.
And every time we go to visit our JW ladies, to see some of them a marked change, or something in their countenance that's changed. I'm looking forward to that day, God willing.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I don't know if that's really happened to too many people when they've been witnessing to them, but because it's usually after they've had time to think, and can be even sometimes years later before they really.
Were there those moments that we've had at the beginning when, whether or not they were listening or not, they were stopped in their tracks when you were speaking something, and they didn't challenge you with anything back, and they didn't refute what you said that we said was true. They didn't challenge it, and so and then we went on.
Yeah.
I like that.
Those are good, because that's giving them something to think about for later.
Because most often, like, it seems those would be the things where they would go, oh no, and then they would give you the reply, and they didn't a few times. So that's nice to see it happen.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we hope for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but it's hard to do that because you can only prepare so much, because they go in so many directions, and they plan it. Like the one lady had all these pictures of different buildings in Europe that had the Tetragrammaton, and I'm sure she planned that ahead. Like that was something they probably talked about.
And why was like for her, like, what do you think the motive was behind that?
I think just to try and press home the whole point of how important Jehovah's name is. That I think that was just every little bit of media that they could present to make it much more convincing. I think I think that's the goal that they had.
So then what again? Why do they hate the word Yahweh so much that it can't be Yahweh, it has to be Jehovah?
Yeah, I don't think they would say they hate the name Yahweh, but I think it's awkward for them. It's uncomfortable because it is more often used, and it's for sure more, like, we don't know the exact pronunciation, but we know Yahweh would certainly be much closer than Jehovah.
Yes.
And really, if you're going to put that much focus on the name and how important it is, wouldn't you want to pronounce it correctly? But now that they've taken the name Jehovah's Witnesses for their religion, changing it to Yahweh would be super awkward. Like, there's no way they can do it, so they have to downplay it as much as they can.
Yeah. So do you think if someone, not us, but were to go to one of their meetings and chose that was something that they weren't going to use, how the JWs would choose for you to use that name explicitly but go by Yahweh or Lord, would you get rebuked, or would you get talked to, or would they tolerate that?
Well, I've never done it, so I would guess that maybe they would, if you're brand new, they would probably just try to gently direct you towards using Jehovah instead. If you'd been there for a long time and started doing that, then you'd probably get disciplined, I would guess.
Yeah.
But I'm just guessing.
Yeah, no, it's just like you say, because they hold it so religiously to the point that, interesting.
One thing that I had forgotten to mention in our conversation was about how I had questioned these ladies multiple times how God could have allowed Satan to take control away from him. And what we got each time was a deflection, never a direct answer or even considering what I was asking.
Yeah, because you had mentioned, remember when the JW lady asked us where we go to church? Remember she kind of and then we kind of said our thing. What do you think they were how did she kind of take that? Was she like, what would they have thought, you think?
That we went to different churches? Yeah.
Or just that we were going to churches, period?
Yeah, well, I think, we've mentioned enough times that we go to church that if they were still shocked by that, then that shows how little they're paying attention to anything we say. Or they're getting us mixed up with other people if they're talking to a lot of other people. I don't know.
But knowing that we go to a church doesn't make them discouraged and think that they're not good material to be.
No, not necessarily, because, well, maybe it could, but I think because we're willing to do this meeting, they'd be like, oh, well, maybe they're not happy with their church.
Because I was thinking, because you go to one that's so I go north, which of course they said, wow, you go that far. And because we don't have a local, we can't find. I thought maybe that was like a little in for them thinking, okay, they're still.
Oh yeah, then they're probably like, oh, they probably are looking for somewhere closer to go. But I also really like that we talked about how we go to different churches, because they probably think we've been brainwashed by the same church and we're just like there being, little robots and whatever. So the fact that we go to different churches kind of opens things up for them. And if they're just going by what Watchtower teaches them about Christendom, then they don't really know the difference between Protestants and Catholics. We're all just a broad brush for them. We're all the same.
Right.
So they don't know the differences in our beliefs. They don't know that we're two different religions. They don't know any of that. And so that's where you get into, like, if I've heard them sometimes say things like, oh, we don't baptize our babies, and I have to go, yeah, we don't either, and then, like they don't even understand.
They want to, like, almost like an in that says, okay, that they're kind of superior, and then you kind of almost diffuse that kind of excitement for them.
Exactly.
Like, okay.
Yeah, because it's like, well, it can go two ways, I guess. It could diffuse what they're trying to be proud of, or it could be like, oh, well, okay, well, there must be a little more open than we thought, because we're the same in that particular
Little do they realize they're like just like the Roman Catholics in the sense of like they leave the Roman Catholic, but they don't really see the similarities.
No, they don't. That's the scary thing. It's like basically they just gave up submission to one organization for submission to another one.
Yeah.
And listening to them, and in both cases, the organization is the mediator between them and God, and basically put themselves in the place of Christ and all that. Yeah, it's so similar. It's almost like Rutherford was taking notes and looking at the Catholic Church and going, yeah, we could do that, but let's just call it this.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
look forward to it.
And we can record that one.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be nice and quiet too, which really helps. So that's it for our little debrief from this meeting. I hope you found it interesting. And next time we will be back to the mall to talk about the next chapter. We had hoped to possibly meet at their Kingdom Hall for this discussion, but it didn't work out in the end. So we're back to the mall and we'll keep on going from there.